Who better to ring in the start of the Champions of Chaos content and the Blood Pack than Valkia herself? That's right, the championess of Khorne is here to fight Falcon's foul Dark Elves. Got anti-large AP, of course, great melee attack and weapon. Melee attack, weapon damage, pretty good overall. 20 bonus versus large, 330 armor piercing damage. Frenzy, flying, of course. This Scarlet armor is nice AoE debuff to weapon strength and armor piercing damage. She's also got this demon shield, which makes her invulnerable for a short time. And the Spear Slupnir is a rare area of effect damage, assuming you take her with the Khorne Monogod faction, which is available in multiplayer, but already we're missing some of the action here, so let's pause it real quick as we go over the builds. I've got some Warhounds of Khorne here that have Vanguard deployed right on top of some Dark Riders with shields. Got some Marauders of Khorne with throwing axes. These guys, they've got a little bit more armor, but they're dual-wielding axes, as you can see, unlike the regular Marauder Horsemen with shields and throwing axes that get a missile block chance. These guys do not. Instead, they have greatly increased weapon strength and a +5 anti-infantry bonus, meaning that they operate very well as a hybrid melee armor-piercing missile cavalry, and also are a little bit more vulnerable to missiles and pretty expensive as well. Flaming attacks also something to make note of there, especially if you take them with Warriors of Chaos, where you can take actual Lore of Fire. The rest of my build here, got a couple of Knights of Khorne with lances. Get in close and give you guys a nice visual on these guys. Of course, they are going to look spectacular and have Frenzy on top of magic resistance or spell resistance. And of course, Frenzy is great for a shock cavalry unit because it increases their charge bonus specifically, which is great. Also, a little bit of extra armor from that Khorne trait. The Mark of Khorne here gives additional armor. It doesn't say there, but a lot of units it does give additional armor, frenzy, spell resistance, whatnot. I've got some Marauders of Khorne up front, a couple of Spawn of Khorne as well, one dual weapon out on the side there, and that's pretty much it for Falcon's Dark Elves. He's got Malekith, double Manticore. So I know a lot of you guys have been asking for some replays of the Witch King. Here you go, in the hands of a very skilled player nonetheless. Dark Riders mixed with, it's lances mixed with repeater crossbows here. Got some Dread Spears and Bleak Swords in the front line. The crazy strong new Bleak Swords actually probably outclass my Khorne Marauders, but we'll get to that later. Got a Death Hack as well. So let's get things started. This big Vanguard situation is not going to be great for me, actually. The leadership of the Hounds, despite the frenzy that they get from the Mark of Khorne, it's not going to do them a ton of good here as they all get routed off very quickly, and this is going to put me a little bit behind already in terms of the mobility engagement. I don't have time to pull my Knights and Valkia over to try and help contest this mobility, because like if I had the Knights available to just charge in immediately, we could have wrecked a lot of this Elven light cavalry, but instead we're going to go for an engagement here. Little flaming throwing axes. I love the visual effect there of that. Gonna countercharge with the Knights. Falcon's like, oh, no, let's not do that. So he's gonna try and pull away there and draw these Knights well out of position. And you can see that they, little bit of Chill Wind there. Chill Wind does much better damage now than it used to. Not against cavalry, but still, the Frostbite certainly helps to slow down their speed. And then all these armor-piercing missile cavalry. Nice breath attack from Malekith. So, actually applies poison. I forgot, the Black Dragon's breath attack actually does apply poison, but Malekith also going to get hit by some throwing axes here. The Spawn and the Knights also pressing on other fronts here. Just going to be hammering through. I mean, as much as Bleak Swords have been buffed, oh man, the explosions of blood as they charge in. I have missed the Blood Pack, and what better way to showcase it than this? You see Valkia just absolutely murdering someone in the back there. That poor dude, him in particular, I mean, definitely deserved it as he's a Dark Elf, but let's not talk too much about that. These Knights, I had managed to get them away, but another kind of slip on micro there, Frostbite, and another big volley of armor-piercing missiles. Cost me a good percentage of HP. On a unit this expensive, you really can't be slipping up like that. On other fronts, though, we're pressing pretty well. The Dark Elves do get Murderous Prowess, though, and in engagement, this is why I say the Bleak Swords beat, I mean, with Murderous Prowess, they beat my Marauders of Khorne straight up in a 1v1 out here. On the very wing, my dual hand weapons are a little bit over-blobbed here. Value-wise, this is not great, but we're definitely going to beat these Dread Spears, even though it will take us a little bit too long. That being said, in the center, we're missing a huge fight. Valkia rushes in versus Malekith, and the two Manticores with her damage you know, prevention, basically, full immunity to damage, which is completely unique in the game. It doesn't last very long, but allows her to get a few hits in there, and for the spawn to come in time to at least try and reinforce this engagement. The issue for me is this line of repeater crossbows. My hounds being seen off earlier means I don't have anything to chase this, and likewise I don't have anything to try and bail out this unit of knights getting chased off by dark riders. Super cost effective for Falcon, but we're going to continue to use my Marauder Horsemen pretty liberally in melee to try and apply some extra anti-infantry bonus, and just the high weapon damage and charge also means against other light cavalry they can contest reasonably well. Animations look a little bit funny sometimes, but there you go. The knights with lances in particular have been charging around too. Just anywhere they go, the dark riders do not want to be. And likewise, we've managed to pretty much clear out a lot of this ground force besides the cavalry, and that is pretty critical, though. I mean, that armor-piercing cavalry is certainly very scary. It looks like we're going to get Soul Stealer going down here. Looks like, yeah, did get a Soul Stealer there. Didn't do too much damage, especially to my knights, but getting some good hits on the spawn of Khorne there. Of course, spell resistance. In my opinion, you know, Khorne's one of those factions that if you're not going to take AoE damage and just take buffs and debuffs, this is maybe one. I would imagine Word of Pain is pretty good here, but at the same time, there is an argument to be made that spell resistance doesn't actually matter that much. But anyway, the Khorne Doom stack here, just smashing through the center. Unfortunately, though, the limited mobility and the high numbers of Dark Elf light cavalry here are giving me issues. The Manticores also, and this Death Hag being completely alive here is a big problem. Yeah, you can see Falcon is doing a great job kind of showing his skill as a high-end player, chasing my routing units and just making sure that all these Khorne units can't come back to help in the fight, because, of course, at this point, like I said, besides Malekith and the Manticores, really doesn't have any heavy units left. You could barely consider the Manticores heavy units. I mean, they're definitely not heavy armor, just in terms of battlefield presence and kind of impact, right? But Spawn of Khorne going to continue to pressure. I'm going to use the woods here as much as I can to try and cover from this ranged fire. And, you know, even though the Spawn don't fight well in forest, they get the same debuffs all other large units do. Cavalry also won't fight well in the forest. And, yeah, it should be okay. Valkia has just been hard landed, though, at this point. I'm trying to keep her mostly on the ground just because in the air, Falcon's got pretty good dominance. I mean, even just with the Manticore and Malekith together, I'm pretty worried about her just not having enough left. But there's the Spear Slopnir. Almost missed it. Not as efficient to use against cavalry, but it actually did enough damage there to kind of alert both of us to its power. And then also the knights charging, oh, ever so slowly. They're barely making contact on their charge animation, and that one Dark Elf in particular gets murdered. Yeah, the only one, unfortunately, we were able to catch, but there you go. We're going to sweep around and try and get at this next unit. Falcon's doing a really nice job maneuvering his units, though, and, you know, keeping these guys close enough to where he can still mostly keep shooting, but also not getting caught. Well, also mostly not getting caught, I should say. Maybe a couple of them are getting caught there. But, yeah, up in the air, Valkia pops back up to try and distract. She's going to fly over briefly and just try and pull the Manticore into these Marauders. This is kind of the only healthy support unit I have left, so the Knights are also chasing in this direction. Eventually do end up catching up a lot of this unit and actually routing them off. So if we can get all of my units together, maybe we can make a little bit of a push, but, I mean, another breath attack coming in from Malekith. Doesn't do a ton to Valkia herself. It does kill a few of those Marauders, and we're going to push forward. Valkia does count as infantry size, which is something to consider. She's going to be fighting in the forest here, right? So forest debuffs large units. She counted as infantry size means she will not suffer from those debuffs, so I figure it's in my best interest to just fight in the woods here as much as I can with the support of these Marauder infantry, so Valkia has to hoof it, quite literally, as try and get over to those poor spawns, I think. Yeah, some spawns being murdered in the forest over here by Malekith and the Manticores. We're not going to be able to get to them in time, so, oh, spawn going for a ride through the woods there. As Malekith finishes them off, pops back up into the air. Double Manticores, the Witch King. So at this point, I know I'm pretty much hosed, but nothing to do left except give a nice Khorne charge here. Try and do whatever I can. And yeah, the Knights actually end up kind of noping out on some Bleak Swords and Dread Spears mostly. I probably should have made contact with that blob there, but I'm trying to draw the infantry in to this fight, so I'm going to keep pulling away there with the knights, maybe hopefully get a little downhill charge there once they get interrupted by the Khorne infantry, but yeah, look at that. Ooh, a couple matched animations, maybe? Maybe not quite, but certainly looks better with the blood, I would say. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice bloody dismemberments and everything. Oh, that Dark Elf. I love that matched animation, even if it does take a long time to play out and leave Valkia quite vulnerable. She's going to hit army losses there with Malekith and the two Manticores jumping her, and Velkon takes the win. So although Khorne didn't necessarily get the win, I feel that I did have the tools to win here. I mean, obviously that unlucky Vanguard is something to be aware of. You can plan around that and obviously not Vanguard so far forward. Like, you can kind of guess the Vanguard zones to your best ability by looking at your opponent's how close you can get to your opponent's actual deployment zone. There's kind of that zone in between where you can Vanguard deploy your units, but they can't Vanguard theirs. Anyway, all that aside, I'm still pretty impressed with how the Chaos Knights did, even with my hand fists. I mean, the one certainly was misused pretty badly, but the one that lasted until the end of the battle definitely felt very powerful. I do think against factions with not a lot of armor, these guys are going to be a better choice than something like Skull Crushers or Blood Crushers, just due to the higher efficiency against non-armored targets. Dark Elves are one of those factions. They can take a handful of armored units, but I figured here with kind of the throwing axes and with Valkia, we'd be able to hunt those high-value armored targets, but instead, Malekith ends up hunting me pretty hard here. Infantry-wise, I'm pretty unimpressed with Marauders of Khorne versus the low-tier Dark Elf infantry. On the flip side, Bleak Swords do seem quite good for the cost. I might expect them to get nerfed a little bit. And also Dark Riders, I mean, they are what they always have been. Excellent light cavalry, some of the best in the game for the cost, and can just get a lot of work done when used by a very skilled player like Velkon here. For my own Marauder Horsemen, I'm a huge fan of these Marauder Horsemen of Khorne. Again, I kind of misuse them a little bit, but they are definitely a very potent tool to have. And Khorne's mobility now, especially since you can take a little bit of cheaper powerful lords. I mean, the Herald's fine, but he can get killed relatively easily, and he doesn't do a ton for you, depending on the mount choice you take him with. Valkia definitely has more of a presence. She is more expensive, but we'll kind of see how the meta with Khorne shakes out in terms of lord choice and how wide or how narrow you want to go, how elite you want to go versus, like, taking tons of Marauders and mobility and Fleshhounds and stuff. Like here, in hindsight, probably cutting the 2 spawns for more Fleshhounds probably would have been better at the end of the day. Just to give me some more punch in the mobility fight, since you're also probably likely to see something like Scourge Runner Chariots in this matchup. I don't know, it's an interesting one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, though. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, you want some more Champions of Chaos and Blood Pack, keep it right here for more. Subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Thanks again, we'll see you next time.